Hello and welcome to the Stars, Goddesses and What's for Tea podcast. My name is Samantha Selby and I am known as the astrological energy healer and channel for star goddess activations. I help the plate juggling women, the ones who really make the world go round, to lead a more spiritually aligned life, to recognise themselves as the goddesses that they truly are. I will be bringing the sometimes complicated concepts of astrology and energy healing down to earth and making them relevant to you and your life. If you haven't already, click on the link in the show notes to download my simple 2-step energy cleansing and alignment ritual so you can have your best day every day. Using the power of the planets, astrology and energy healing, you can take the inside track in your life and follow your soul pathway to the next level of soul ascension alongside human level health, wealth and happiness. So let's dive into all of this juiciness in today's episode. Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the Stars, Goddess and Goddesses. God, there's more than one. We can't leave some of the goddesses out. Stars, Goddesses and What's for Tea podcast. And in this episode, we are going to be continuing my series in Astrology as Alchemy and exploring the planet Venus. Now, you've probably heard of Venus. Venus as the planet of love, the goddess Venus. It's all about love and relationships and all the juicy squishiness of that Venus, the picture of the hearts. There's, when you think about Venus, there's little red hearts everywhere. But she's far more than this. She's far more than falling in love. So let's dive into Venus as a planet in this integral dance across the heavens and the concept that all of the planets in the heavens are here to support your continued soul development, energetic up-leveling, and human level evolution as a whole person and human being. So when we think about alchemy and astrology as alchemy, this is, for me, the core fundamental part of understanding of astrology, that alchemy and the study of the planets and the stars, astrology, come together and create transformation and change. And this, for me, is what astrology is all about. The possibility of change, the actuality of change, the reality of change, because everything changes. Nothing stays the same. And when we look back at the ancient writings and the ancient texts describing astrology and alchemy, we look at the meaning of the word. And it means to penetrate the very secrets of nature, life, death, unity, eternity, and infinity. It is something that you study, but it's something that you practice. It's an approach to living, an approach to life. And it's all about the forces of creation. And the most powerful force of creation is the energy, the frequency, the vibration of love. And fundamentally, that's what Venus is all about. She is the planet of love, the planet of relationships. She is your receiving energy. You attract people, things. You attract everything. You attract energy with your Venus energy. Your Venus energy, the part of you that attracts and receives, is Venus. And so she's essential for us to connect with and understand in order to create, to manifest, to grow, to live a life full of love, a life where we get to choose what we want to do and feel. And so Venus is this very, very, very important part of your chart. Just as important as your sun and your moon and your Mercury, because she's such the essence of love. Now, first of all, we need to understand her position in the march of the planets, her position in the orbits of the planets. So we have the sun, our central sun, our spirit energy, the sun as the center of our solar system, which everything revolves around apart from the moon, because she does her own thing. So we have the sun as our masculine principle. And then we have the moon as our feminine principle, who orbits really where she likes. She orbits around the earth. And she is our unconscious, our feminine energy, our ability to flow, to be dynamic, to move, our intuitive energy, our rhythms, our cycles. And then we have Mercury. Mercury is our thoughts, and Mercury is the very next planet out from the sun. And this is why sometimes we think we are our thoughts, because Mercury orbits and travels so close to the sun. And then we have Venus. And Venus is between us and the sun. And along with Mercury, she is known as an interior planet. So Mercury and Venus are our only links between the sun and the earth. So what we think and what we feel, Venus, are what connects us to our central sun. And the relationship between the sun, Mercury and Venus is incredibly strong. You know, in ancient times, the Venus, because we can see Venus in the sky, she's very bright. She's actually brighter than Mercury. She's larger than Mercury. But people would often describe her as a second sun, which just shows you the importance this planet has in our psyche as we have developed as human beings and evolved. And in all the years, you know, the ancient civilizations that followed the planets, tracked the planets, they all put a great deal of emphasis on the planet Venus. So Mercury is the planet of communication. It is our objective perspective, whereas Venus is our subjective perspective. Mercury is our mind, Venus is your heart. And both of these planets show a different perspective of the world. And you can approach your life with either your Mercury energy, your mind, or your Venus energy, your feelings. How amazing would it be to be able to use both? And that's really what I love about astrology, because we come in with a energetic blueprint and we can read your natal chart, and this can give us information about which of those two approaches you might lean towards, approaching with your mind, your thoughts, or your heart, your feelings, Mercury or Venus. And we do this by looking in your natal chart, the position of Mercury and Venus, whether they sit before or after your sun, whether they sit close to your sun, or whether they sit further away. So we can gain this insight into how you have come in with, the energy you've come in with, in order to understand the world through your mind or your feelings. But that isn't always how you end up. And that's because of the experiences you have growing up. Now, if your birth chart shows Mercury sitting very close to your sun, and Mercury can only ever be in the same sign as your sun sign, or one before or one after, because Mercury's orbit around the sun is so tight. So you may have come in with this initial energetic imprint of approaching the world with an objective perspective with your Mercury energy. But what if when you were growing up, people criticised what you thought? What if when you started to think about things and you were really trying to work something out and you were seeing things in a very black and white way? And there is no judgment on this, it's an observation. What if you were told that, oh, you spend so much time in your head. Stop sitting there thinking about it and do it. There can be a criticism of your natural approach to how to understand the world. And the same goes for Venus. If you have Venus very close to your Sun in the same sign, then you may approach the world with your feelings. It may feel as if your feelings are who you are. So if you feel sad, it really affects your whole energy system. And if you feel happy, then it really affects your whole energy system, who you are. But what if you have if Venus in your chart is very close to your Sun and your feelings are so wrapped up in your identity, and yet you're criticised for them? Oh, stop being so emotional. Oh, can you just stop crying? Oh, you're like a yo-yo, up and down, because your Venus energy is so close to who you are as your identity. Whatever you feel, you just express, whether that is happy or sad, and yet you're criticised for it. You're put down, you're shut down, and so your Venus energy shrinks. Oh, I can't show my emotions. It's not good. It's not acceptable. And when we shut down our Venus energy, not only do we shut down our emotions, we shut down our ability to receive, love, our ability to manifest, to receive anything, receiving a new job, receiving a new car, receiving gifts. Our heart energy shrinks if our expression of our emotions is criticised in any way. It's not acceptable to show those emotions. So imagine your Venus energy. And when we look in the sky, we can see Venus as this, the morning star or evening star. Imagine that bright light that is nearly as bright as the sun, that the ancients thought was a second sun. Imagine that light dimming each time your heart was wounded, when you felt rejected, unloved. Imagine that light dimming, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Imagine it's like a dimmer switch. Those of you, I don't know if they have dimmer switches anymore. It was the thing. When I was growing up, when you got dimmer switches, oh my God, maybe 80s? Yeah, probably 80s, where you had dimmer switches. And literally they're little knobs on your, instead of a flicking on and flicking off, little knobs on your light switch. And I remember when we had all ours changed in our house, literally every room in the house now had a dimmer switch. And you could turn it down and then you could turn it up again. It was just the thing. It was very fashionable. I don't think it is so much now, but it was a big thing. But just imagine that this is what's happened to your Venus energy. That bright light that the ancients saw as a second sun, dimmed, turned down, limited, until it's just a tiny glow in the horizon. And that's what can happen to your Venus energy when she has been limited, hurt, when she feels afraid to express herself. And this is why it's so important to expand and step into your Venus energy, to understand how she works and to understand her fears and her values. And all of this we can explore with your Venus sign, the zodiac sign that Venus was in at the point of your birth. And this is also really interesting. I find this fascinating when I look at people's natal charts, and they might say, "Oh yeah, I'm a Virgo sun, but I don't know, I don't really fit. It doesn't, I don't really do all those Virgo things. Love Virgo energy. Being the focus, the detail, the the ability to be able to very certain. Shadow side of Virgo energy can be indecision, but so they're Virgo traits, and someone might say, I really don't identify with that. But then we look at their Mercury and their Venus. And if their Mercury and Venus are perhaps both in Leo, their mind and their heart are wearing Leo clothes. So although their sun sign is Virgo, their mind, Mercury, their Venus heart energy is the heart and the mind of a Leo. So they identify more with Leo traits. And this is why it's really important to look at all of your planets in your natal chart, not just your sun sign or even your moon. And so this also applies to, as I've said, about if your Venus or Mercury is in the same sign as your sun, you will identify more with your mind than your heart. And this is because astrologically, Venus will never travel more than 48 degrees away from the sun. So she can only ever be found up to 2 signs before your sun, in the same sign as your sun, or 2 signs after. So for example, if your sun is in Gemini, Venus will only ever be in Aries or Pisces, or Gemini, or Cancer, or Leo. And this gives us also another insight into your Venus energy. Because Venus as a planet in the sky, she's either seen as a morning star or an evening star. So she will either rise before the sun as a morning star or after the sun has set as an evening star. And because she is the planet of love, she is teaching us how to love. She's showing us your unique love signature. And the position of her in your natal chart and where she was in the heavens when you were born, either as a morning star or an evening star, it gives us an insight into what you are learning in this lifetime. So if Venus was a morning star, when she was you could see her in your natal chart, she comes before your sun. She's a morning star. You are learning to love yourself first before you love others. And if she's an evening star, as in she is after your sun, then you are learning to love others before you love yourself. So there is so much we can learn about the position of Venus in your natal chart, but also the aspects, the relationships she has with the other planets. And I'm going to do there will be episodes about things like aspects, which are relationships. Imagine the heavens as a big party, and like a big ballroom dance. And all of the planets spend time dancing on their own, but they also spend time having little chats with the other planets when they move close to them. And sometimes these little chats can be very beautiful and very supportive. It's like they're going, oh my God, I love you, and I love you too. And will you be my friend? Will you hang out with me? Let's be friends. Let's always be friends. And then other times, the planets are like, oh my God, you get on my nerves. Or I really find what you're saying and how you're behaving deeply uncomfortable. Or I don't agree with that at all. I'm going to challenge you every step of the way. And these are the different relationships that can show up in your natal chart. And this is why sometimes we can struggle with certain things. So for example, Mercury, your communication energy, if there is a challenging aspect with Saturn, might sometimes feel as if your communication, your Mercury, is limited. You can't get your words out. Or you might feel that you're not going to be heard. And yet we can also have really supportive relationships from Saturn. So Saturn might give your Mercury energy some structure, some drive. Because Saturn, that's what Saturn does. It gives us the ability to be very focused, some drive, some structure, some foundations. So along with Venus. So our heart energy, Venus, if there is, again, so Saturn sounds like the bad guy. If there is a challenging aspect with Saturn, our Venus energy can feel very restricted, as if it's shut in a cage, our heart locked away, because Saturn challenges that expression. Or we might have a very friendly aspect with Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter are best friends. It's like, imagine them skipping through the meadow. You know, Jupiter's going, oh, I love you, Venus. I'm going to help you to expand and grow. And, you know, you can be as big and large and juicy and expansive and massive as you want. And Venus is like, yes, yes, Jupiter, I love you. Because Jupiter expands everything it touches. So with Jupiter and Venus in a very supportive friendship, there can be an expansion of your heart energy, an expansion of your love. You can love enormously. Now you might think, oh my God, yeah, I want some of that. But what if you loved so enormously that your heart was vulnerable to hurt because your love was so all-encompassing? And so we always have to consider what a relationship between the planets can bring, but also how it might not work so well, because there is always the light and the dark, the shadow and the light. So Venus, yes, she represents love and relationships. And yes, she represents how we receive. But Venus also represents our values, how you make sense of the world at a deep personal level. And we can see this illustrated in the sky again. So Mercury always hangs out near the sun, our mind, but Venus is brighter. Venus, with our values, are actually our strongest guide in every decision that you make. Venus is more complex than Mercury. Mercury deals with gathering information and processing it. Venus gives this information meaning. And this is why some things matter to you more than they do to others. And the reason for that is your Venus energy. So it might really matter to your partner that your house and your home is neat and tidy. It might really matter to them. You know, that's one of their values, that the environment they're in is neat, tidy, and everything in its place. Whereas you, doesn't matter to you at all, really. As long as you can find something when you need it, it doesn't really matter where anything is. There can be stuff everywhere. You can be more free-flowing with that. It just doesn't matter to you. It's not important. It's not a value for you. And it doesn't mean that you are right and they are wrong. It means your Venus energy are in different signs. Your values, your Venus has a different outfit on. So it's going to mean different things. Your values are going to be different. Venus is also how you remember things and why you remember things. So imagine as a newborn baby or a small child, even as an adult, when you open your eyes, that's Mercury engaging. So your brain engages, and so as a tiny baby, your brain engages, your senses are engaging, but your brain is being bombarded with millions and billions of pieces of information. Your ability to absorb and process those pieces of information is Mercury. But your ability to remember that information is Venus. And this is why we don't remember everything. So I find this so fascinating when I'm having conversations with my sisters about when we're growing up. And the same thing happened. We were all there for the same event, but we will all remember it differently or not at all. And I hear this with my sons as well. They talk about things and I'm like, are you sure that happened? They are remembering this in such detail and I can't remember it at all. And that's because their Venus energy decided that that situation had a value for them. It was worth remembering. It has emotions and feelings attached to it. Whereas I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't remember it. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but my Venus energy hasn't stored it because there is only so much space in the storage device. Consciously, that's the difference. Unconsciously, in our energy field, everything is stored. But in our solid brain kind of memory, there is a certain amount, which is why we distort things to fit what we've already got in our memory. We delete them completely. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me, gone. Because we can't consciously maintain everything. So we distort, we delete, or we keep. And so your Venus energy, your values, your emotions, your feelings decide what's kept and what isn't. And that's so, so powerful. You only remember the things that have a feeling attached to them consciously. So whether that feeling is a joyful, happy feeling, or whether that feeling is a scared, afraid feeling, you remember it consciously because it's your Venus energy. So anything that is neutral, that doesn't trigger your Venus feelings, it does not serve your survival, and it will be erased from your memory. It'll disappear from your cognitive memory. It does stay in your aura, in your energetic field. And this is why I use muscle testing in my work to access your higher consciousness, to access your biggest recording device, your energy system. Because even if we can't remember something, doesn't mean it's not affecting who we are and how we approach the world. Now, Venus also shows us what we like and what makes us feel good. Venus also describes our approach to beauty and love. And all of this is because Venus is connected to what we value. She's also our approach to money and your self-worth. So Venus in your natal chart shows you how you feel about yourself and whether you feel worthy of love. If Venus energy, your heart energy is neglected or shrunk or limited or shut away or any of those descriptive words, your self-esteem, your relationships and your finances will be affected. Now, often when we're not feeling so great about ourselves, our self-esteem feels low, we are not feeling very worthy, not feeling as if we're very lovable. We may look outside of ourselves to fix that. Oh, if someone will just love me, then I will feel better about myself. If I go and buy that thing, I will feel better about myself. If I eat that food, I will feel better about myself. If I do this thing or do that thing, I will feel better about myself. So with Venus, we often look to other people or external things to feel different about ourselves. However, Venus is an inner planet. She is between us and the sun. And what she's teaching us is love yourself first before getting into a relationship. That's how Venus works. Now, you might say, well, actually, Sam, early on, about 10 minutes ago, you said that if I have a Venus as an evening star, I'm learning to love others before I love myself. And that is absolutely true. But in order to love others, you love yourself first, you love others, and then that love comes back to you. That's what I mean by an evening star. In this lifetime, love yourself, love others, and then you receive the love back. As a morning star, you love yourself so you can love others, and then you receive it back. So fundamentally, because Venus is an inner planet, your self-esteem, your value, the value you see in yourself, has to come from within before you look for your self-esteem to be raised by those around you. Because when we look at the symbology around Venus, we look at the little picture. It's called a glyph. So in astrology, the little pictures that you see in your natal chart, they're called glyphs. And she looks like a handheld mirror. And so Venus is also about our reflection. Venus will tell you how you reflect yourself in others and how others reflect in you. And this is why we are drawn to people with similarities and common values. This is your Venus energy saying, actually, find people, hang around with people that have the same values as you. And when there is a little distortion in that, they don't have the same values. The things that matter to you don't matter to them. Imagine looking into one of those fairground mirrors, you know, the ones that are a little bit wonky. And when you look in them, you know, you've got like really skinny body and little short legs, or, you know, a really, really, really massive head or massive feet. We get distorted. And again, this is our Venus energy. Venus wants our heart, which is what Venus is, to hang around with similar hearts that are of the same vibration and frequency. This doesn't mean you have to be with someone who has the same Venus sign as you. No, that's not what that means. What it means is have someone with similar values. So it could be that your Venus energy is in Leo and you are attracted to Leo suns or Leo moons, or they have Leo energy strong in their chart. This could be a Leo ascendant, or it could be a strong fifth house, because there is a synastry. Your heart, your Venus energy recognizes that signature. It might also be joined to another fire sign, Sagittarius, for example, or Aries, because there is synastry there as well. So Venus as a transiting planet, so as she moves around the heavens, one of the most powerful cycles in the zodiac is the Venus cycle. And this is when Venus creates a conjunction with the sun. So this is when Venus and the sun are in complete alignment. And this creates what we call a Venus star point. So the sun and Venus and the earth are in alignment. They're in agreement. And this begins a Venus cycle. And a Venus cycle is where Venus in the heavens is teaching the whole of humanity a theme of the sign that is happening in. So it could be Capricorn, It could be Pisces, could be any of the signs. The sun is in that sign, Venus is in that sign, and they are completely in alignment. And a Venus star point is created, and usually takes about 18 months for Venus for another one to then be created. And in that time, Venus moves from that point of conjunction, complete alignment, and then she goes round the back of the sun. So there is another alignment, but she's hidden from view because she is transitioning from a morning star to an evening star. She's at the other side of the sun and we can't see her. And then she moves all the way around again until she creates that new conjunction, and a new cycle of Venus begins. So when we're studying these cycles, this will teach us one of the things that we're learning over the next period of the Venus star point and the Venus cycle. And dependent on where this impacts on your chart, again, this depends where it will show up in your life. So when Venus is transiting across the heavens, imagine that she is beaming down love. From the planet Venus, beam down to us here on Earth is just a beam of love, a light of love. And her role is to ask you to explore your self-worth, your self-appreciation, your appreciation of the world around you, and gratitude. She's inviting you to feel this energy and to experiencing it in whatever part of your life, natal chart, that her light is beaming down onto. So Venus does ask us to connect with our heart energy. That's her role. And what I find so beautiful about this planet is the pattern, the dance that she undertakes across the sky. And I urge you to Google this, to have a look on YouTube for the pentagram or the 5 petals of Venus. Because when her orbit is tracked, she creates the most beautiful shape. It's part of sacred geometry, and it is the flower of life, and it is just gorgeous. So I urge you to have a look at that, the dance of Venus. And so Venus is just the most magical planet to have in your awareness. She will show you how to express love and how to feel love. But if your heart energy, if your Venus energy, your expression of your emotions, your expression of your love is limited or shut down in any shape or form by what you've experienced in your life, either as a small child, when you first enter into relationships, imagine that light, as I said earlier, dimming. So your heart wounding, your Venus wounding, will limit your self-worth, your value, and your ability to receive. And so connecting with Venus energy, your Venus energy, your natural Venus energy, is essential if you want to have happy, healthy, respectful relationships. If you want to activate your receiving muscle and manifest and create, connecting with your Venus energy is absolutely essential. And one of the simplest ways to do this is to sight her in the sky, is to actively look for her. Is she a morning star or an evening star? Can you see that bright light in the sky? And to gaze upon her, and just imagine as you gaze upon this beautiful, stunning planet, that beam of love traveling through all of time and space towards your heart. And then imagine your heart expanding as you receive the gift of love from Venus. Another really powerful way to connect with Venus energy is to consider every day, what am I valuing today? What am I grateful for today? What do I value in my life? Is it the connection I have with my friends? Is it a tidy house? Is it being able to move my body? Is it the delicious food that I get to eat? What do you really value? What is your heart's desire? What is your Venus energy? How is she? Just consider her as actually just as important as your sun. Oh, she is just the most incredible planet. So I hope you've learned a little bit about your Venus energy and how important she is. And by expanding her, by connecting with her, by bringing her intentionally into your life, it can make such a change and transformation, which is exactly what astrology is all about. Being intentional about your energy, about what you desire, because Venus also governs our desires. She is how you love. And this leads me neatly onto what I love, which is my tea. So tonight for tea, I'm having salmon. Now in this house, we call it salmon. I'm having salmon for tea. And I just love, for me, salmon is it's like, I just love a nice juicy bit of salmon. I'm having it with sweet potato and probably some green. I have to have green on my plate. When I'm looking at my tea, I colour. Really not very good at pasta, which is bland. I don't eat a lot of pasta, only if it's got lots of colour in it. But to me, when I have salmon, so I'm going to be cooking it, some Cajun spices on top of my salmon. So Rosie will have this as well. She doesn't have as much Cajun spices. I have more. So in a pan, so the skin goes really crispy, and I put a lid on the top. That will take about 5 minutes to cook. Nice chunky bit of salmon, and with sweet potato, beautiful sweet potato, all of that lovely colour, and then some green. Have to have some green on my plate because I love green. So nice bright green broccoli, maybe some green beans, but definitely some green on my plate. Rosie is having a little bit of a love affair with sweet corn at the moment, so she will have some sweet corn on her plate as well. And then we're really bringing in the colour of our food. So when I look at it, it's like, oh my God, this just looks so lovely. At which point everybody rolls their eyes. I'm like, oh, she's off again. Where I kind of go, oh my God, this is so yummy. And I will have a bit of butter on my sweet potato. So there is the golden yellow of some butter on top of my sweet potato. So that is what I'm having for tea tonight. I do like to see colour on my plate. And salmon, don't know why we say that, but we do. Having salmon for tea. So thank you for listening again. And from my heart to yours, love and starlight. Thank you for listening to today's episode. It's always good to hear what you think. So please let me know by leaving a comment. And if you loved what you heard, then it would be amazing if you shared it with your friends. If you would like to explore astrology and energy healing on a deeper level, come and join a community of open-hearted souls inside my Facebook group, Astrological Energy Healing for Life and Business. So until next time, love and starlight. Bye for now.